Hello and welcome to the Daily Atheist Morning Show. It is, what day is it? Tuesday, the 10th of November, 2020. I'm your host, the amazing Super Chris. I've got my co-host, Andy Hall from the Laughing in Disbelief blog. He'll be joining me in just over at Patheos. And he also has a Laughing in Disbelief channel here at YouTube. The links are below. Andy Hall will be joining me in just a second. And we're going to be talking about what's going to happen with Trump and what to do about Trump if and when he refuses to leave office, etc. Be right back.
I gotta do something for this ad for the Laughing in Disbelief YouTube channel. Color. Well, I like color. Color's pretty cool. Everyone's doing color. Color is stupid. I can't do color. I gotta change it. No. Too much change. Bad change. Too different. Monkeys? I like monkeys. Check out the Laughing in Disbelief YouTube channel.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Andy. I hope you had a good day yesterday. How's it
I
been?
did. A very productive day, sir. Quite happy with it.
Awesome. Good. Andy's ready. He's got stuff he's ready to hit us with here in just a minute. Let me do this show. That's good. Good morning, everyone. I want to say hi to the damnation. We are now streaming to my channel, his channel, the Rage channel, Facebook, about 15 or I think it's actually 18 different YouTube pages and streams. We're also streaming to the Daily Atheist Morning Show podcast live. Good morning, everybody listening on the podcast. Hey, good morning, Light Brat. Nice to have you with us this morning. And we're also streaming to TrumpFamilyTreason.com as well. We added that stream to our... All right, I got to knock this down because it's getting long now. As of today, we are also streaming to Twitch and Discord and Twitter. So I've got all that stuff going on this morning. Good morning to everybody watching everywhere. I hope you're all doing wonderful. Thank you for joining us this morning. Okay, I'm gonna work on this. Good morning, everybody, and just kind of narrow it down because this is getting long. Oh, and one more. That YouTube guy who has to watch every show in order to get it monetized. Good morning to you. I hope you're having a good day, YouTube employee. Okay, Andy, what do you think? How's it going this morning?
I'm doing well. I want to start off with a story that I did not tell you about. I just discovered this on Twitter. I follow Kelly Wienersmith. She probably just pronounces her name Wienersmith. She's an academic. She is married to Zach Wienersmith, who does Saturday Morning Breakfast Cereal, that hilarious and really smart web cartoon. And her tweet here, and I don't usually talk about tweets, even if it's from President Trump, which I guess we'll talk about President Trump's tweets later on. But Kelly just tweeted this. I wanted to share this with you all. And this is what she wrote. She wrote down, incredible patent I stumbled upon, quote, apparatus for exercising the penis. This is a rated G diagram right here. You might be able to see it. You might not. But that's, I guess there is a little exercise machine. It looks like a little bar that you can wank. Okay. I don't know. And that can apparently exercise your region. I don't know how. Really? Well, there's a patent for it.
Okay. Awesome. You know, I never really. I guess some people might need such a thing.
Maybe. Or it's a hilarious gag gift that you can give your loved one.
It could. Well, you know, it could be a penis lifter.
Right. So I want to talk about
shake weight for the penis.
Shake weight for exactly.
Sorry.
We're starting off the show classy. I'm sorry.
Keep it classy. Yeah, you beat me to it. Okay, Andy.
So now we're going to talk about some legitimate political analysis and maybe a bit of discourse.
Okay.
I saw this tweet. I think it was from the president or one of the president's lackeys, and maybe it was on Facebook. And it's a campaign. And it's basically a document talking about how, and I'll tell you the name of the document. It's Trump campaign files suit in Pennsylvania against unconstitutional two-track system. I'll just read like a paragraph. President Trump's re-election campaign today filed a lawsuit in Pennsylvania alleging the creation and implementation of illegal, quote, two-tiered, unquote, voting system for the 2020 general election. Pennsylvania's two-track system resulted in voters being held to different standards depending on how they choose to exercise their right to vote. In-person voters have to sign voter registrations, have those signatures checked against voter rolls, vote in a polling place monitored by statutorily authorized poll observers, and have their votes counted in a transparent and verifiable, open and observed, blah, blah, blah. So this is part of the Trump plan to get the legislature, the Pennsylvania legislature, which is Republican run, to choose their own band of electors and overturn the vote. As we have talked many times here, Chris, and my friends, that yes, there is a small chance, but there is a chance of Trump losing the popular vote, losing the Electoral College, and still winning in the extra innings of play that we are now in. Though many people are saying that, many sane people are saying that, yes, definitely Joe Biden is the president-elect. Many major Republicans are keeping their powder dry. They're being non-committal. Of course, the never-Trumpers like Mitt Romney, senator of Utah, and once governor of Massachusetts, may I say, is definitely in the Joe Biden one camp. No surprise there. There are many Republicans who are non-committal, waiting to see how things play out. Maybe Trump will be able to win after all. Who knows? But they are basically keeping their powder dry to see how all of this shakes out.
Well, Trump is doing everything he can to subvert our democratic election. The election we went through, they started claiming it was going to be corrupt before it even started, because he knew there was no way he was going to win this election. And then they lost it miserably despite all their efforts. All those voter suppression tactics, blatant voter suppression. Oh my goodness, the fake ballot boxes that the Republican Party put in place in California. I mean, that takes some stones. And then to refuse a judge's order to remove them, bigger stones. This is the Tea Party in action, and I would not be surprised at all if they do everything they can, just as Andy has predicted. What were those dates, Andy? Do you want to go through those? This isn't even on those dates, is it?
No, well,
it's not even one of those.
If the here's December 8th. This is the safe harbor. I guess that's what they call it for the feds. This is the federally mandated date that, yes, states have to get their acts completely resolved with their votes, with the popular vote. December 14th is when the electors vote. January 6th is when Congress certifies the vote. And January 20th, which I think it's a safe bet to say where the game ends, where the final story ends, when double death overtime ends, is Inauguration Day. And there we go. So what we're talking about here is whether or not Pennsylvania, or what the Trump strategy is to make sure, or to fight it out in the courts, maybe up to the Supreme Court. Because if the Supreme Court says that the vote is invalid in Pennsylvania, then the legislature gets to choose their electors. And since they are Republican run, they will be having Republican electors vote for President Trump. And those 20 votes that are right now in the win column for Joe Biden, they walk over, or maybe goose step over.
Yes, goose step. I like it. Goose step.
You like that? You like the little visual aid I did there? The goose step.
I did. Yes.
Over to the Republican win column.
Yes.
Now then, people say to me, Andy Hall, that's a very low chance of stuff happening, because Pennsylvania state. See, I read some things occasionally.
You read. Hooked on Phonics worked for Andy.
It worked on Phonics, and there is a law in Pennsylvania that states that the popular vote actually has to be the thing that decides on the electors who vote for president. There's a state law stating that. Of course, we all know that the Supreme Court represents the federal government, and that they rule, and that their ruling upends or can upend state laws or state, regulations. So once again, likely that those 20 electoral votes are going to stay in Joe Biden's column. If this gets up to the Supreme Court before,
that's why they put her there.
How long before? But
that's why they put her there.
If it gets up there and there's a 6-3 split for conservatives versus liberals in the Supreme Court, then it's once again where we will be hip deep, maybe genital deep in double death overtime, and who knows what's going to happen after that.
Well, the state of New York needs to be after him like a hen on a June bug. Just that. But that's one thing. Do you want to make a comment, something about the hen on a June bug? I know it's going to get you until you do.
Trump peers asked me if I've practiced that. I've been going through these dates and reading up on stuff, so I think I know these dates in my freaking sleep at this point. Gotcha. Yeah, I never heard the June bug. The June bug. I know that hens eat ticks. I know that hens eat ticks, but
that's a good example too. A better example.
I didn't know about the June bug hen relationship there.
Yeah, well, one of the things is that the state of New York is going to be after all over Trump, right? Like ugly on a stick. Now, the other thing that's going to be going, but that's part of the problem. Between now and then, Trump is going to be doing everything he can to destroy our democracy. They need to stop him. They need to go, you know what? This is enough. Your ass is out of office now. We don't need to wait. And if those conservatives in Pennsylvania or wherever are going to support them, we need to get them out too. They're perfectly willing to subvert our Constitution and do everything they can illegal to destroy our democracy. We ought to be able to go, you know what? We just need to set some things aside for a second and get you out of office because you're just toxic for our country. These right-wing Tea Party conservatives that have taken over are just trash. And that it's all the way up from the president all the way down. The president, I've been saying this for a while. The president is going to say something to do something, and they're going to do it. They're going to follow him. And here we are. Even Fox News cut off McEnany yesterday because she started talking about the fake vote. And I tell you, if Fox News gets behind this fake vote thing as much as Trump and them were, it's going to be very, very ugly. Fox News needs to be dealt with.
I agree. I was listening to the 538 podcast on my morning walk just before I clicked on and came on the show. And they, there's a lot of liberal kind of hand wringing and shoulder shrugging, like, I don't understand why this is happening, about why more Republicans aren't stepping forward to say, Trump, you lost the election, deal with it. Because after all, that's an assault against our small d democratic system. And it's like, I don't know what world. I mean, I have mad respect for the people over at 538. But let me say this. The idea that Republicans, a vast majority of Republicans and the Republican Party leadership are small d Democrats, you have got to just scrub that out of your brain, because they are not. They are not democracy people. They are at the best benign oligarchs, and even that's a stretch. And at the worst, they are fascists. The idea that Republican lawmakers are not stepping up and telling Trump to go away and to admit defeat and to act like an adult is just another symptom of the fact that the Republican Party leadership do not support democracy, small d democracy. It is as simple as that. So it just irritated me. And that's one of the things, us liberals, we want to be understanding and we're nice people, or many of us are, not us, Chris, not you and I.
Of course. Yeah.
But many
We're
Democrats
jerks.
are, because the thing is, and I just want to say to my fellow liberal friends, the only reason why we're nice, all right, you think that it's a conscious choice that we're nice, but it's not. It's the idea that we are in blue states that are not miserable. They have high standards of living. Typically, they all have pretty good jobs, and so that creates this
live and let live kind of
a live and let live mentality, while our brothers and sisters who are conservatives typically live in red states, and they are just more aggressive, and that's why they win elections. And while we're trying to hold out olive branches, they are kicking us in the nuts.
That's right.
It's
or they take the olive branch and go, hey, how come you're not extending me peace? And you extend them peace, and they take it and they hit you with it, and they go, hey, how come you haven't? Right. This modern GOP is just the absolute party of hypocrisy. Politicians have always been known to lie. We're not kidding ourselves about that. Right, left, doesn't matter. Yeah. If you're a politician, you're probably a lawyer who became a politician. Lawyers are known for lying and being unscrupulous. So when you take from a pool of lawyers and you move them up to politicians, which is also a pool of unscrupulous people, and then you get the president out of that, how could you possibly we always knew that. But this is open fascism. This is open corruption. There's so many words that go on with what's going on with the Tea Party. This is what happens when the absolute far right gets power. They don't want to get rid of it.
Right.
Kyle Trump.
Exactly. And James Henry said the GOP equals National Socialists. Yeah. All right, we'll go with that. I'm comfortable with that kind of thing. Sure. Even though it does besmirch the good name of socialism. I'll go with that just because of the historical accuracy there.
Yeah, Weimar feels. This is what the Weimar Republic felt like, right? And now we've been talking about the Reichstag. I always thought the Reichstag moment for us would happen before the election. I didn't realize that it might happen between the election and inauguration.
Well, this is probably like we were saying before. This is the most dangerous time for the country.
Oh yeah.
Is because this is when people are desperate. Like I said, a lot of Republicans are just sitting back and seeing what happens. If Trump's able to pull it off, if he's able to do something crazy and pull it off, or let's say the Democrats make a really big mistake. I know it's unrealistic to think that the Democrats would make some kind of crazy mistake and would allow Trump to get another 4 years in office. Then there is trouble. This is a potentially dangerous time.
Well, too bad Nokasuchi is
January 20th.
Oh, probably even after that, I suspect. That may just be when the fireworks really start. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, there'll be no doubt there'll be militia action of some kind, like minor, probably at the very least it'll be minor stuff. People just showing up in town squares in their, I don't know, Bubba gun. Bubba gun? I'll go with that. Bubba gun outfits. Bubba gun outfits. But in terms of
gravy seals,
like in terms of real crazy stuff happening, it's between now and January 20th. And once again, this lawsuit in Pennsylvania, amongst all the other lawsuits, of course, the one in Pennsylvania is especially one to keep an eye on. And maybe nothing will come of it. But if something crazy happens, it could be right from that Pennsylvania situation there in that lawsuit.
That's a good point, and I love that you pointed that out. But if anything happens in there, those 20 little electoral votes, I don't think that's enough, is it? That's not enough for him to win the election. He's going to have to do that in Georgia and in Nevada and in Arizona. He's going to have to do this in several states to make his win. Am I wrong?
You raise a very good point. I believe at the end of the day, Mr. Biden's going to have 306 electoral votes. So you knock that off. Mr. Biden still has 280. It's well over the 270.
Right.
He's going to have 286 electoral votes. So yes. Well, this is the problem. All right. This is the problem that the Republicans have, is that much like in 2016, they have to thread the needle, right? In 2016, they had to thread the needle in terms of flipping states. Now they have to flip states too, but they have to flip it after the election, which is far more difficult. It's far more difficult to do.
Mhm.
And because there's a lot of resources and a lot of time they have to spend doing it.
Yes. Well, but one thing that bothers me is that they're calling for recounts. Okay, I don't mind a recount. Go ahead and recount.
Yeah.
But to then, after you've called for a recount, to insist and put in charge of the recount a Trump crony, that bothers me. That bothers me greatly. I want a nonpartisan individual or actually group of individuals in charge of that recount. Who wants Donald Trump Jr., for example, in charge of a recount? You think you'd get a fair recount there? Anybody? Does anybody even remotely think you're going to get a fair recount? Just, maybe it's like the example of them putting DeJoy in charge of the mail.
Right. Well, I think you raise an interesting point. And it's a theme that we've talked about here on this channel, many, or these channels, since our channels are legion now, running this show. But, our should politicians self-regulate themselves? In other words, we're active politicians. Should they be even overseeing the vote to begin with?
Right.
It seems to be like hens, like wolves in hen houses. The idea that we should have some kind of civilian oversight, right? That there should be some non-political way or non-active politicians, people like bipartisan commissions running these recounts, and that there should be active politicians should have nothing or very little to do with recounts. I mean, in Georgia, of course, it is a state law that if the vote is so close, they have to do, well, they don't have to, but they can. And so from what I understand, the lieutenant governor asked for a recount, which, it is what it is. There's like Biden has such a large lead. Right. It is highly unlikely that the vote's going to flip. So maybe the lieutenant governor is just doing it just to do it, knowing that, Georgia's not going to flip.
Right. Well, my understanding is none of them are going to flip. But, whenever you do a recount, you might get 10 or 15 votes. You don't get into the thousands and thousands of votes. And if they find piles of votes, especially votes like voter mail-in votes or something that Republicans have insisted they set aside and somehow those some get counted now, they're going to go against Trump. So, but again, so he's gonna the thing ain't gonna end there. Even if he gets Pennsylvania, which would be phenomenal, which would be like total upending of our democracy, especially if they run it up to the Supreme Court. Of course, how fast can they do all that? How fast can they make those things happen? Well, with Mitch McConnell, we need to do something about the Mitch McConnell. We need to. But it's too late.
He is not going. Well, it's an interesting. It's a good way to pivot to something else I want to talk about. What are the jobs? When we were talking about the debates, I was thinking about, were the contestants were the fighters, was the president and Biden or Vice President Pence versus Harris, were they doing the jobs that they needed to do during the debate? And now that Biden is the president-elect and probably going to be president, what is his job? And people have different opinions about what his job is. Penn Jillette contributed a piece. Penn Jillette, of course, Penn and Teller, used to be a big L libertarian. I'm not sure if he still is, if he's still identifying as that, but I'm going to read a bit of the article. It's Penn Jillette wrote a bit for After a Bitterly Divided Election, What's Next for America? So Penn contributed, this small piece along with a bunch of other people, but I thought I would read it just to, because, once again, Penn has a lot of weight in the community, and I thought it would be good to at least read this.
Penn. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Penn Jillette, you have one job, Joe. Okay, so it's not over. There will be court fights, but Joe is one. I used to identify as libertarian. I used to have opinions on government. I used to think I disagreed with Joe Biden on most everything, but I voted for him. I wanted the other guy fired, and I wanted Joe hired. And for me, the job description is now very simple. I need Joe to love all the Trump supporters. Calm down, Chris. Let me finish before you pop off. I need Joe to love all the Trump supporters. I don't care if Joe raises taxes. I don't care if Joe helps add stupid, counterproductive regulations. I don't care about anything except love and kindness. I've never seen Joe as a hero, but now we need Nelson Mandela. We need MLK, and it needs to be Joe. We need someone who can love the people who hated him and lied about him. He must rise to the occasion. Half of the country voted for Trump. These people did not buy a pig in a poke like in 2016. These were people who knew what they were voting for and voted anyway. It's appalling and horrifying, but these people are not monsters. These people are our neighbors and our relatives. These people are us, and we need someone who can reach out to love them again. Joe started saying the right things already, but he has to go all the way. Please, Joe, make me embarrassed to say anything bad about Trump supporters. Please fill all our hearts with love for each other. Please. This is Joe's chance to have a situation make him better than he has any right to be. Please teach us to love and understand and move on together. You have one job, Joe. Love all of us. And that was Mr. Gillette's bit here in this CNN opinion piece after a bitterly divided election. What's next for America?
Okay. I feel it. I get it. Those that aren't, so the people, speaking to you people out there, if you're a Trump supporter, we're going to set you aside because, Trump lied to you. And we know Trump lied to you through Fox News. I've actually said that several times. Fox News and Trump and their ilk have lied to the people so much that people believe it, and it's not necessarily the people's fault. Okay. We can do that. But Joe needs to go after the politicians. Joe and the conservatives and the liberals, we need to get those politicians out who supported this Tea Party coup of our nation and our democracy. They need to be gone. They need to be investigated. Mitch McConnell? Oh, no. Mitch McConnell's got 6 more years. He just won election. No. We need to investigate Mitch McConnell and have him removed from office. That's what needs to happen. Lindsey Graham. All of those Tea Party guys who took money from Russia or who were involved in the NRA Russian scandal or any of those things, all of them, start off by going, which one has stuck with Trump throughout everything? Start with those and start the investigations on their money and finances to find out. And we will discover, and we need to get those people out of the office. They cannot get away with bilking our nation for trillions of dollars, or Trump's going to rerun for election in 4 more years. How many people died because of his incompetence and greed? How many people? And yet, if we don't stop it or do something, get rid of that toxic poison that is taking over the conservative party, if we don't get rid of that, I mean, and get back to our normal level of corruption, then we can address that. No. Then we can address it. Because every time I say that, then Nokasuchi especially is always going, well, then we got to go after, well, yes, absolutely. Joe Biden is not perfect. The system is not perfect, etc. The old system is not perfect, but let's get as close to that and then start addressing it. Right now, we're trying to fight off fascists. We fought them off. But we got to keep them off. We got to make them responsible for their actions. The reason are, so on the right, they accuse the left of everything they're doing. And they're wrong. So these investigations, Hillary testified for how long? Had no problems. Now, if we did the same on the left and prosecuted the right for all their lies, corruption, hypocrisy, all that stuff, they would not win. They would not stand. We stand because we're not as corrupt, we're normal corrupt. That's as we're saying. But you know what I'm saying? This party that we've got now is just completely poisoned by this Tea Party mentality. And it needs to end. And that's Joe Biden's thing. Yes, what Penn Jillette says is true. Yes, if you're a Trump supporter out there, we love you. Hugs, 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 all that good stuff. No reach arounds. But those politicians who tried to subvert our democratic society need to go and answer for it. That's what I'm saying. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your cooperation.
When I think about what the job is, now I'm going to say, what is the job of Joe Biden? I think of 3 big things right here. That is, and the most important thing, there is one thing to do, and then there's how to go about doing it. So I would say the most important thing to do is to build up the Democratic Party. My green friends are going to hate me for saying, my liberal friends, my leftist friends are going to hate me saying this, but I'm just saying what Joe Biden's job is. We have our job. And our jobs are different from Joe Biden's job.
Our job is to push him left.
Right.
That's our job. Push him left.
But the most important thing for Joe Biden to do is to build up the Democratic Party, and he can do that in a couple of ways. One is, of course, letting D.C. or pushing for D.C. and Puerto Rico to become states. People talk about, once again, stacking the Supreme Court. We have to stack the Senate. We have to get more seats in the Senate that are solidly blue. We do that. That is more power to the left for generations to come. So once again, statehood for Puerto Rico and D.C. That is an important part of building up the Democratic Party. 2 is protect Obamacare. Once again, it is to, we obviously know that he's not going to be doing Medicare for all, and so if he can protect Obamacare, put in more protections against it, that's great. Because once again, the less miserable people are, the more likely they are to vote blue and to not be religious. During COVID-19, there's been a swing towards religiosity in this country. If we have Obamacare for everybody, or at least access to insurance, then religiosity goes down, people are less miserable, and they're more likely to think clearly and more likely to vote blue. So that's 2 things: statehood for Puerto Rico and DC, protect Obamacare, make it stronger. And then the third thing that is Joe Biden's job is to cement and to strengthen our international alliances. With NATO, with dealing with our many enemies that are even less democratic than we are. And yes, that could be, and I wrote here in parentheses, F Russia. Okay, so that could be part of the, that's more pleasure. That's not business. The business is just, strengthening our international alliances. But, the pleasurable part of that could be F Russia. If we have some extra time and some money and to do something, we can deal with them. Well, that's total pleasure. We should just be strengthening our international alliances at this point. At least that's Joe Biden's job. So once again, strengthening the Democratic Party, and I guess the international alliances part aren't really strengthening the Democratic Party, but it could, because people want to feel safe, don't they? They want to feel safe and normalcy. So those 3 things, statehood, protect Obamacare, and strengthen the alliances. I think those are the 3 big tasks for Joe Biden. That's his job.
Good point.
Yeah.
And I can't really argue those things. I'm just pointing out the other part about how we can't let these bastards get away with it. We cannot.
No, I agree.
And there's another thing though. Another good point is that normally we start off with Trump. Well, once January 20th, and we get him out. But man, he's not. We should not wait that long. We need to get him out as soon as possible through whatever means possible, because he's intentionally trying to harm our country. How can the FBI and the CIA and the Department of Bill Barr needs to go to jail for the rest of his life. He needs to be investigated now. He needs to be removed from office now and investigated. This is not, but the whole deal. We sound like right-wing nutbags, don't we? Joe Biden needs to be investigated. Hillary Clinton needs to be investigated. But they did investigate her and found nothing. When we investigate Trump's people, we find all kinds of corruption and problems and issues. And we need to investigate these people. But one side accuses the other of that which they are doing. And that's the right wing. They are the hypocrites, right. The party of hypocrisy. And they need to be pulled out of power now. Trump, we can't wait until the 20th, because they're going to do everything they can to drive our country towards stealing the election for Trump.
Sure. There's a question from a member, Sammy Jenkins, about are the people responsible for the transition working with Biden's office yet? I'm not sure. I would say probably not, to tell you the truth, because they are going to be Trump people working in the transition. And we've seen rocky transitions before, petty acts from the old administration to the new administration. And it'll be interesting to see what will happen. What we can definitely say are that the Biden people will be more competent than the Trump people, since Trump offered a certain amount of chaos. That was his managerial style. His administrative style is just chaos and having people infight to get his attention. So what we can definitely say is that even if it is a rocky transition, Biden's people will be competent, or more competent than the Trump people, and will be able to deal with things.
Hopefully.
And Biden is getting briefings. That is correct. Never again said that. So he's getting briefings But is the transition team, is there the nuts and bolts of transition of the transition team actually happening? I'm not absolutely sure.
Yeah. But it wouldn't surprise me, of course, that they would be fighting with them every step of the way, because that's what Trump does, Yeah. And, Andy, there's this thing about, I realize you might be torn in your predictions. One says Trump really doesn't want to be in office. He's throwing this on purpose. And then there's, everything that he does that says otherwise. He could do like the Democrats and go, oh, stop. Okay, I lost, and go away. The Democrats do that. They're like, stop, Mr. Trump, stop being so mean. Yeah. Here we are.
Well, it's an interesting question. So Donald Trump. Once again, we've all become amateur psychologists of Donald J. Trump. And I know we all want to take showers several times a day just trying to get into his brain, that squirrel of a brain he has. So I would say that, there's definitely there is a wait and see aspect of it. There is definitely sending the lawyers out. He was going to do that anyway, because the lawyers are going to be out there to see if there's any weakness and to see if there's any real chance of flipping states, right? Because that's their job. So, from what I understand, Trump's playing a lot of golf and just being the sociopath that he is. And he's tweeting crazy things like, we will win, in all caps, or we are winning. I have him. I still have him. And this is just part of my dedication to the show, Chris. I still have alerts on for Donald J. Trump. So
and he's still
he's still doing crazy stuff. Like, we will win, all caps, and retweeting Breitbart News. And so on Twitter, so on Twitter, that's an insult to squirrels. I'm sorry, Slade Camara. So, So, if I was him, I would just send out the lawyers, keep playing golf, do crazy stuff on Twitter, keep my base energized. And look, maybe the Democrats will make a fatal mistake in a couple of states. That's possible. Maybe I will be able to swipe things around, switch states. Maybe I will be able to flip Georgia and Pennsylvania. If not, I would imagine Trump is thinking, I still win in a way that it's highly unlikely they're going to actually throw me into jail. Highly unlikely. And I'll be making more money than I am now once I'm out of office. So, I think that's how he's gauging things. He's not doing everything he could be to flip these states Republican. He's not like signaling out to militias, go out there and overthrow governors. Yet. I mean, that can change too if he feels like he can get away with it.
That was my next question, by the way.
If he can get away, we all know if he thinks he can get away with it, then he'll try it. Right. So there is restraint in him waiting.
But that's the end of it. If he calls up for these people to go out after their governor and a governor gets killed because that happens, that's the end of Trump. There's no more. There's no coming back from that at all.
Is it?
No. Yeah.
I don't want to be the one who's even more negative than you are about the state of politics here in the country. But let's say some militia gets knocks governor there, Gretchen Whitmer, and kills her. Right, just does one of these crazy jury, trials, and kills her. Would that end Donald Trump?
We're not talking about the same thing. No.
Right, tell me
about Donald Trump comes out and says, militia, take these governors, go to their states and take over these governors' houses and do what I'm activating you now. Go do your thing. And then you're just talking about like if it just happens. No, I'm talking about if he calls them out and like Michigan's governor was harmed. Right. Or the worse. That's what I'm talking about. Then with that, because that's clear.
So let's talk about some of the shades of gray there. They're all dark. Don't get me wrong, but there are shades of dark gray. So let's say he goes on Twitter and he goes, some people say it's a good idea for governors to be, held accountable for their actions. Well, that's a dog whistle. That's a dog whistle right there. That isn't saying go out and do it, but it does.
Yeah. Okay. That's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're talking about.
Right. Well,
That wasn't this. No, wait. I set out a scenario at the beginning, and you're intentionally padding it and using words to soften Trump's culpability and what I said. I said Trump comes out and says, activate. These governors are doing something bad. You need to take over these governor things. And then you're like, well, what if he said that the guy, no. That's not the question. That's two separate questions.
Well, I would even say then that it would be nice. The evidence points to the fact that, yes, Trump would be in trouble on a federal level with federal law, but who's going to arrest him? The DOJ? It would be basically a military junta at that point. It would be a coup. And there's no...
So essentially, Trump can do anything. It's already been a coup.
Well, there are coups and there are coups. Trump is still acting president. He was impeached. He's still in office. And the idea that he is, under your scenario, if he actively tells militias to go and literally kill governors, right? Would Republicans stand up against that? I don't know. I don't know if Lindsey Graham would do that. I don't know if Mitch McConnell would. I don't know if the military. That's just where we're heading. I don't know if the military would cross the line and decide to. I mean, you could say that Trump is acting illegally and immorally. But with the military stepping in and being politicized like that, I think it would still be under some definitions a coup. That's what I think. Is it necessary? I think it would be. But is it still a coup? Definitely. And it sets a dangerous precedent for the military being politicized.
Well, but we've already got a dangerous precedent to the tune of 250,000 American lives in less than a year.
Well, that's why Joe Biden.
American lives.
Oh yeah, I agree, and it's more than two. It's more than the amount. The amount of.
We go through this every time. Yes, I know that.
Yeah,
it's all closer to 3.
That's why I'm saying Joe Biden's biggest job is to strengthen the Democratic Party and preparing for the next election and the presidential election after that. He needs to do something to level the playing field. So that, and the only reason why Joe Biden's going to be in power, if he is in power, is because the Republicans shot themselves in the head several times during this election cycle. Right. We cannot expect them to lose the next election. We have to win it. We have to earn it. And that's what Joe Biden has to get into his head, is that you have to earn it. But unfortunately, I don't think he's that guy. I don't think he's the guy who knows how to win. He's the guy who will take advantage of the other guy losing, but he's not the guy who knows how to win.
I think if they can focus and get mandatory voting going in any kind of fashion, that would be the key for them. Because anytime the vote turns out, look how hard the conservatives have fought every step of the way to let people vote. Make mandatory voting, and these far right-wing people will never have office again, ever. And Joe needs to work on that. That needs to be a priority, I think, in my opinion.
I think at the very least, keeping all this, having more people vote is great. And you know what? You're right. I haven't really put my balls on the table and said mandatory voting is necessary. I've evaded that position, but you're right. Mm-hmm. I don't think the Republic's going to fall if we have mandatory voting.
No. And you know what? We had mandatory registration for men whenever they turn 18. So to say that we can't do those things, thank you to whoever subscribed. It doesn't show up on my screen for some reason. My alerts. I've been screwing with stuff.
Because they hate you. The tech demons hate you, Chris. That's
the tech gremlins. $2 of support. Thank you from Daniel Bennett for the $2 of support to the channel. Much appreciated. Saying, hey. So these are the things. We got to address these things. Will our people do it? What's Nancy Pelosi going to do? What can she do? And if they can't, then what's the purpose of all of this? If one party can just get power, why didn't Obama do it? But Mitch McConnell said, we're not going to do this. Obama should have said, you know what? Well, I'm just going to write this thing here, and it doesn't matter what you think. Because that's what Trump does.
The Republicans, the Republicans are really good at offense, and the Democrats just suck.
We just, to echo Nokasuchi.
They just suck.
to echo what Nokasuchi's always saying, we need to get rid of Nancy Pelosi. We need to get rid of all those leaders and get new people in there. We need to get new blood in there doing stuff who are as motivated and want to win as bad as these right-wing people do, because they're not. Why didn't they try to impeach Kavanaugh? Why didn't they retry to impeach Trump before the election? Why didn't they do all those things they could have done to slow the appointment of Barrett to the Supreme Court? They could have tried things that they didn't even try. And you know what? Now they're like, oh, well, we'll let them have that one. Well, letting them have that one may give them the election. And will people rise up? Well, is the right wing going to rise up if Joe Biden on Inauguration Day, if he manages to stay in, is a small right wing going to rise? Is the left wing and the rest of the population going to rise up if Donald Trump steals it at this point? There were people dancing all over the world. Are Americans going to just sit here? Are we just going to sit here if Donald Trump wins, if he takes this election? I think this is me saying might be getting me cut off the channel, but if Donald Trump steals this election, the American people need to march on the White House and all the, what's that? The House of Representatives and physically remove these people from office. We need a government reset. Really, physically, all of them, liberal, Democrat, all of them. We got a Constitution. Listen, that Constitution, they used it to rape us and kill us. They pulled trillions of dollars out of our economy and gave it to the rich. No. That Constitution needs to be rewritten. I don't care. They're willing to shit all over it, all they want to, and rip it apart so Donald Trump can keep power. We need to be able to do a little bit of that ourselves and rewrite that Constitution. Carry on, Andy.
Some nations do rip up old constitutions and rewrite. Chile right now, Chile, the South American country, they had a constitution written during Pinochet's rule, who was dictator, military dictator, and they just had enough. They had enough. There were a lot of street protests over the last, I believe, 6 months, and they're just rewriting. They're having a constitutional convention, and they're just rewriting the constitution that they had since Pinochet's time. Be interesting to see how it plays out. Hopefully, they won't have a system based on ours, but rather a parliamentary system.
Yeah.
Presidential. I just want to say presidential systems like ours with an overly powerful chief executive, over time, they typically don't work out too well.
They don't. The reason why our country is the way it is, and a lot of these things are the way they are, especially our voting practices, electoral college, et cetera, is because of the time it was written. You couldn't get a message and all this stuff across the country and instantly. Now we can. We really can have a true democracy. We can have everybody in this country voting by their electronic devices with their thumbprint, their ID, please. Okay.
So Jacqueline Rorsing is asking me in my chat about what parts of the Constitution off the top that need to be changed. And I'll tell you right now, the Second Amendment. I talked with Professor Alan Lichtman. I always bring up Lichtman names because I like to cite my sources. He's on my channel. He wrote a book about rescinding the Second Amendment. That doesn't mean getting rid of guns in the United States of America, but as a constitutional right. If we get rid of the Second Amendment, which is possible, it is a lack of will and not a lack of knowledge about this. We get rid of the Second Amendment, and then suddenly all these guns, or at least in the future, people just have less crazy rights to their guns, and they just aren't given blank checks to go blow people away. So yeah, that's what I would say. Just off the top of my head, the Second Amendment needs to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, mandatory vote. Really, rewrite the entire Constitution. We need to take over.
Should I say the Electoral College? So that's it. Electoral College and the Second Amendment. Electoral College. Even if you don't want to get rid of the Electoral College, just dividing up the electoral votes within the state, like Nebraska and Maine does, that is a no-brainer. It creates more competition within states, and politicians will have to go visit all the states to get all those juicy votes, as against to just focusing in on a few battleground states. And it's just going to be more fair that way.
Right.
So there you go. Those are just two off the top of my head. Second Amendment and getting rid or changing the Electoral College.
And Scott Duke points out redistricting reform. No more of this gerrymandering. Politicians should no longer be allowed.
You are so effing right about that. Virginia, as we mentioned before, passed a ballot initiative that creates bipartisan commissions to get. There's so many effing things about the Constitution that needs to be changed. Redistricting, the idea that states have they just have control over their federal elections. In other words, and oh my fictitious God, what have we seen within our own lifetimes about states effing up the vote? Why? Because the federal government has limited say on how they run their vote. So that means, once again, the Russians, when they hack into our systems, they're not fighting the federal government. They're fighting your county commissioner. They're hacking into your infrastructure and not really an infrastructure protected by the United States of America. It's a mad system that we have. So if there are going to be reforms, you can just start like rattling off. The idea about gerrymandering, the idea about federal elections being federalized, novel idea, electoral college reform, getting rid of the Second Amendment. So that's just like 4 off the top, So much work to be done. And getting effing money out of politics too. See, so that's 5 things. The number of things that need changing are legion. That's our work. That is our work. Politicians want to keep in. Most politicians don't want gerrymandering to end. The people who got the ballot initiative done in Virginia had to fight politicians on both sides to get that initiative on the ballot. So our job is to agitate for a change. There's no doubt about that.
Well, I think people who hold public office should be qualified for those offices. If you're going to be in charge of the Department of Energy, you need to have some kind of education related to those kind of things. Because our government has been overrun by these people who are actually contrary to the positions they're in. They're put there to destroy these bureaus and departments and agencies that we built to strengthen our nation. Putting unqualified people into office such as that is unacceptable. There needs to be requirements. If you're going to be in office, something like that, no more of that stuff.
Yeah. If I was writing a constitution, I would put in healthcare is a human right. If you're talking about human rights like the freedom of speech, I'd say healthcare is a human right there. And that should be paid out of the general fund. I think that's a way that you could say, like, where the rubber hits the concrete. If it's such a right, then it gets paid out of taxes, out of basic taxes.
Yes.
Also universal basic income. I think that's foolish not to have as a right either. Many things need to be changed. It boggles the brain, Chris. That's what it does. It boggles the brain.
We could take a tiny, tiny amount away from the military-industrial complex, which they would never even miss. And we could educate and feed our people and do all these things and give them health care. It's just ridiculous.
Let me tell you about how pernicious and toxic the military-industrial complex is. When Harry Hawkins came on my show before, he taught the Green Party candidate. He talked about the Iron Triangle, and it's the relationship between politicians, individual districts, and military contractors. And what these politicians have done, what the military-industrial complex is, and why is it so powerful, is because their fingers are in every single district in the United States of America. So every single district has an interest, has incentive to support the military-industrial complex, because if you go against it, you're going to lose jobs. And no politician wants to be holding the bag with closing down the military base down the street and losing jobs out of that. So yeah, it is heavy lifts coming up.
Yeah, and the whole time we're trying to do these heavy lifts, we've got this a third of our population seems to have lost their mind.
Yes, they have.
We have to fight them.
Once again, I want to talk to we are in the business of changing hearts and minds, and besides just rallying the troops, and part of that needs to be for my atheist brothers and sisters out there is to go out and try to change minds within our own community. especially the conservative atheists out there, because conservative atheists are just digging their own graves and digging our graves too at the same time by supporting policies that actually incentivize religious fundamentalism in this country.
Right.
And of course, the general public too. We just got to change hearts and minds.
Well, there's this also, when you tie it in like that with the religious fundamentalism and the right-wing politics, the right-wing politicians are using religious fundamentalists to get their vote on issues they don't really care about, to get power, which they use to hurt people. It's a sick little.
I just want to talk about protection from tyranny here. The best protection of tyranny is to make people feel, I'm just replying to Jekyll and Rossing. The best protection against tyranny is creating an educated and happy and healthy public, and that is through these policies. The idea about getting rid of the Second Amendment, the idea about universal health care, all these things. And when we talk about universal health care, there are many countries that have a basic boilerplate plan, and then if people want to pay into another plan, then that's fine too. More like a 5 level. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
Who cares?
So there are many ways to solve this problem, and we are just lacking the political will to execute. That's what it is. It's just lacking the political will to execute.
Well, I think my thing is, first step to fix that political will, mandatory voting.
Yeah.
Because once you get rid of the power that the far right wing has, you can get those other policies in place.
I think the most important thing people can do is to subscribe to my YouTube channel. See, cheap plug.
Cheap plug. Oh no, that wasn't cheap. That was like classy. It was like, all right. So you want to go ahead and tell us? I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. What do you got going on? Andy, got anything special?
Well, I just did a funny 60-second video yesterday about this Fox News woman anchor who didn't realize. I don't know if you saw it, Chris. It was one of my shows.
I haven't seen it yet.
It was this. You gotta love it when people don't realize they're on camera, but they're still live. So this Fox News anchor, she was on camera. Didn't realize it. So one of the guests was running her mouth, and it was hilarious. That's what I did about yesterday. And I might do another funny one today. I got to round me up some guests. I'm thinking about doing a Sunday night show, to tell you the truth. I'm thinking about doing a Sunday night show. I cleared it with a girlfriend, so it doesn't interfere with our schedule, since we're on lockdown anyway over here. So what about, so that's me, and of course I'm still writing funny bits on my blog, laughing in disbelief. I wrote a bit yesterday, I don't know if you saw it, about a dog in Texas, no doubt, who shot its owner. The man was literally the man had his gun right in his waist, which is, I think that's clearly a bad idea, because there's this other guy who shot his pecker like maybe a month ago. So this dude, he was lifting up his dog, and the dog's paw just happened to like catch on the trigger, and the gun went off and shot him in the thigh. And it's like, dude, horrible. So I put that story on my blog yesterday, laughing in disbelief. It turns out dogs shooting their owners by mistake, it's not entirely uncommon.
No, it's happened before. Yeah, it has.
So these are the things that I do.
That's awesome. Well, I look forward to your other shorts. I'm going to drop a couple of shorts myself probably today. Thank you to the advice you've given me on that and other things we've got going on. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up now. As we've started running a commercial at the end of the show, one of our little commercials. We need to make more of them, granted. But there's like 20 people at the start of the show and 70 people at the end of the show. So we wanted those people who show up at the end to be able to get some of these commercials. Today I'm going to run the All Caps Bible. Andy, that's what we're going to end the show with. Yes. So thank you all for joining us. We will see you tomorrow. I hope you enjoy this commercial. Have a great day. Stay safe.
Peace on.
Do you love Jesus? Do you love America? Do you love yelling at strangers? If you answered yes, then there is a new version of the good book for you. The All Caps Bible. The All Caps Bible has everything from the sacred text you would expect. God creates the world in 6 days. Noah saves bunnies from the great flood. Jesus preaches God's message in the Sermon on the Mount. However, the All Caps Bible levels up the message by putting everything in all caps. That's right, you don't have to go to church to hear God's message yelled at you. This Bible will yell at you while you're reading it. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Christians love the All Caps Bible. Here are a few reviews. Mason in Dallas, Texas says, I don't feel guilty anymore yelling at the Starbucks barista. Karen in Oklahoma says, Jesus' message of forgiveness is better when you yell it. And Tommy in South Bend says, who knew the little drummer boy was such a jerk? Buy the All Caps Bible right now and get a loudspeaker so you too can spread the good news. You get everything for a low, low cost of $89.99. Thank you for watching the show. A special shout out to my gold level Patreon supporters, Cindy Plaza and Ian Davenport. Thank you and have a great day.